Welcome to the Last Poll podcast. I'm here with Xandrii. Xandrii and I have connected several times over the years. I think I was on your podcast once. I think it was a long time ago, actually. And I know that you've played a lot of Final Fantasy and other MMOs and other games. I know you own like a game store and you're super hype about that. And I'm just excited to reconnect with you, learn a little bit more about you, and talk about sort of the culture around Final Fantasy and Guild Wars 2. And maybe I know you haven't played the expansion yet. You haven't played Xandrii Wilds for Guild Wars 2, is my understanding. So I'm curious what your expectations are, and I can kind of nod along, but I won't spoil anything. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm actually really, really excited about the expansion. So, previously, oh my gosh, when I had talked about other expansions for the game, everybody since, you know, the beginning of my adventure with playing Guild Wars 2 is like, story's okay, like it's kind of meh. I'm not exactly sure if I like this expansion yet. I'm letting it sink in, and it's been kind of for everything. And everybody so far that I've asked about Xandrii Wilds has either not been able to play it, or they think it's absolutely incredible. So I'm hoping that that's a really good sign, because for me, I'm a really story driven person. And spears, I'm so excited about spears, and being able to do more with having, like, is it called homestead?
Yep, homesteading.
Yeah. So one of the things I had made a YouTube video about it a really long time ago when I'd started playing Guild Wars 2. And I said that it would be really cool if we could do more with our home instance, like invite people in and actually have like, you know, uh, furniture and things that you could use and like really decorate other than just trophies. And I'm I think it's actually, this is probably going to sound bad, but I think it's funny how it has been received. Mainly because it seems like a lot of people are super hype about it, which I love. But when I had put out that video, people were upset that I wanted that I wanted something that wasn't already in the game like that. So I just think it's really kind of ironic that it happened and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, I love it." So the thing that's hard for me right now, and I don't know how anybody else feels about this, especially if you play multiple games, but all of the expansions are around this one little time frame, especially with having kids and doing something else. So you've had recently 14 just came out with Dawn Trail. We have Xandrii Wilds, and then early access. I believe if you've gotten the Epic version and pre-ordered it for World of Warcraft, you have access to the War Within today at 3. I thought it was.
Yeah,
So
I think
it's
it may be
insane.
live now or it's going
Yeah.
live. Yeah, I'm not really a WoW player, so I can't really speak to that. But I did hear Teapot talking about it earlier, and that's
Mhm.
yeah, it is a lot. I think you had your son when I had my second daughter, or like roughly around, because Asker's what, like 2?
Yep, he's 2.
Yeah, 2. Yeah, so my little one is almost 2, so it's close, probably somewhat close. But yeah, I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, so I get that it's a bit of a wild ride. I'm curious how you're able to find any time to game. Like, how do you do this? Because sometimes I feel like I am insane for even attempting to stream a little bit. It gets a
Hmm.
lot. Like, how do you run a game store and manage the family and everything too?
I feel like I don't. I have serious scheduling issues. I think one of the things just about me that I'm sure people, if they know me, would know that I like to think that I can do everything. And I definitely can't. Uh, Being able to kind of give certain tasks to myself and my husband has been a super huge help. Like, he's been incredible about trying to make it so that I can do what I want to do. Unfortunately, with that being said, a lot of backseating for certain things has had to happen, specifically for content. If I have been doing any content recently, it's been more of like just doing TikTok for the shop or trying to stream every once in a while. And in order to, well, in a trial and error type thing that I was doing to keep up with it, I was trying to stream while I was at the shop, in case there was any downtime or whatever. I had my whole setup there, and I was like, well, it would be hard to stream an MMO because I would have, you know, people walking in. I might have to help them. You know, I might die. I might not be able to answer questions because I really love chat and I love being able to talk with chat. So I was like, all right, maybe I'll play Magic because that's on brand. That's part of what the shop is. It's a card shop, tabletop stuff, like just a nerd store. So I was trying to play Magic and not really talking and just kind of playing the game and letting everyone see me deck build and try to rank. And long story short, I think I have come to the conclusion that because I miss content so much, I'm just going to continue trying to do things here and there rather than trying to make it work within the folds of what we're doing currently, which is pretty much working on our house. We're remodeling it from pretty much nothing. Uh, and the shop, we actually finally, we were working separate jobs as well to make sure that we could continue making the shop work. And now we're at a point where it can just be the store, which is
Congrats. That is huge.
thank you.
You need to hear how awesome that is, because it is a grind to make any business work to a point where you can actually sustain yourself. And you ought to be very proud that you've made it to that point. So that is a huge kudos. Wow. What kind of other jobs were you working at the same time?
So I believe we had talked about nonprofit stuff previously, and I was helping it's a like resort, ski resort, but it's a nonprofit that's here and it's for Nordic skiing. It's called the Monaco Winter Park. And I had initially started helping them with all of their social media stuff, and I was able to work from home. So it kind of made sense for me because it was like, well, I'm not really working from home. I'm working from the shop and I have to do social media for the shop anyway. And so I was helping them with that. And it had gotten to the point where um, I was on call all the time because a lot of people were older and they didn't really get technology. And so anything that they couldn't figure out, like a Zoom meeting or changing to Google Meets or something with their point of sale system, they would just give me a call. So I ended up moving from, you know, the social media and communications to IT. And then I ended up helping out because they had somehow gotten themselves into a really bad website deal. And so they
Oh
ended up
no.
accidentally, they had someone build them a custom website for a nonprofit group that they really only needed to show like their events that were coming up and do ticket sales, which they didn't even do through the website. They did through separate software.
Probably like Eventbrite or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that. They ended up going with ticket sign up, but it's pretty
Yeah.
close. And so they didn't know how to do those things, and they had tried to contact the person who had custom built the website, which was before I had signed on. And the guy was like, "Well, I mean, I'm not a web designer, so we built the website for you, but if you want anything extra, we would have to like hire out and it would be like $600 an hour." And I was like,
Oh
well, I
my
could learn.
gosh.
Yeah, I was like, I could learn a little bit and of this code to help you out. And so I ended up learning code for them and everything and working on their website. And my husband was helping at the post office part time as well. So he did that until the shop opened at the time around like noon. And then I worked from the shop doing other stuff for this nonprofit group. And it was insane. It was like a 60 or 70-hour week, and trying to make sure that we spent time with Oscar or whatever he was doing was still like learning and not just sitting there was
That's
insane.
hard.
Especially,
Yeah.
yeah, because we didn't even start sending him to a learning center. It's like a daycare, but an early learning center as well.
Mhm.
He just started a couple months ago. So that's kind of it helps as well because we really like them, and we know that he's being, you know, he gets to go outside, experiential learning, he is being socialized even more than at the shop where it was all like people that were older. It's everybody around his age. And now I'm sitting here going, okay, so once I get all of this admin stuff done, I can focus on content. So it's been very sporadic, but it's been getting done, and I feel like it's because we're a good team and things are moving in the right direction. So now we're focusing on one thing now we can look at the other things. So it only took 2 years. It was our 2-year anniversary of the shop being open last year. So
Yeah.
or
It's wild
last
to
week
think like you have a
rather.
two. So basically you started the shop at around the
Yep.
same time that you had a baby. Like that is
Yes.
a
He was
remarkable
only
accomplishment.
old. 4
Yeah.
months old.
Yeah.
So it's been crazy, but it's been more of now that he is more of on a structured schedule instead of matching our schedule. It's easier to have the shop open, get whatever administrative stuff that we need to get done, and then when we play games, it's usually when he's taking a nap or if like we've actually gotten all of our like office work, CEO type stuff done, and then we'll look at stuff. So there's been a lot of things that we've started that we haven't finished, though, to be fair. Like, we still have to play Baldur's Gate. That's one of the biggest ones. We want to do a run of Baldur's Gate together.
Told my wife I'd refinish a table like 4 years ago.
Oh,
So
no.
somehow having children, you're like, oh yeah, all those projects you have, they never
Hmm.
happen. They
Yep.
always get pushed. They always get pushed. But yeah, it's wild how interesting it is balancing a family and trying to run a business or do anything. Like I don't
Hmm.
know how much you've followed my adventures, but I'm starting a PhD program in like 2 weeks. So that's
Oh,
gonna throw a big
nice.
wrench into the the
Yeah.
wheel, but it'll be an interesting experience. I'm curious about the business because I've always thought, oh man, sometimes I'm a TikTok rabbit hole person. Like I just go down these
Okay.
TikTok rabbit holes and I always see people that are like, I'm starting a business from scratch or whatever it is. And I've always thought it would be super cool to see like your game store journey. Is that what you're doing on TikTok now?
Um, we probably should because it would probably be a lot more wholesome. Currently on TikTok, we're doing skits of things that have happened that have annoyed us. Um,
I've seen a few of those actually.
But we should. I was actually telling Evan that I would like to do some sort of little podcast thing, especially we've started recording certain things at the shop, like competitions, championships, and things like that. And we just have to put them on YouTube. But one of the things that I would like to do is kind of talk about um, owning a game shop in our area.
Mm.
Because not only did we actually start from scratch, but it was like we started with only our collections of cards. So mine was Pokemon from when I was younger, and Evan was really big into Magic the Gathering. And so we had pooled together all of our cards and we were selling online just on like third party places like TCG Players, one of the bigger ones
Mhm.
that people know of. And we had ended up moving to Minocqua because the place had become available. And we were in town and we were kind of like touring the town because Evan had been here. He'd summered here for forever, and I'm from New York, and so I had never really gotten the chance to actually see. It's a cute little town on an island, and it's all boutiques, and it's super cute. And we were walking by this building, and they had just put up a for lease sign, and so we inquired because we're like, well, it's got to be a sign, right? It's the first time I've ever walked through this town. We really want to move forward with, opening a shop, and I haven't gotten the chance to meet people here because I'm pregnant, and so no one my age, and it was in the winter or heading into winter, and so we go in to ask the business owners because they own the jewelry shop right next door. They own this whole building, so it's all technically one building but different floors. And they're like, "Yeah, so it's only 1,000, and then you do your anything else you need for utilities." And we're like, "It's what? It's only
It
$1,000?"
sounds pretty cheap, actually.
It
I mean,
is
I don't
like
know your area, but like
it
here,
is.
that would be extremely cheap for
Yes.
yeah, for commercial rent.
Yep. And it's a tourist town on top of that. And so it's
Holy.
like it's really cheap. And so we were like, okay, how do we do this? Can we make it work? And we had discussed it, and we were both like looking for something else to do for work anyway to make it happen. And to be frank, we literally spent probably every single last penny that we had to put in this deposit and pay our first month's rent. And I actually borrowed $500, the exact amount, from my mom to get our first shipment, which was actual sealed products. So like D&D books, like boxes of, Pokemon and Magic, and it was absolutely ridiculous. I was like, I'll pay you back in, a day or two. Like, I'm hoping all of this sells out, and I'll be able to pay you back. And thankfully, my mom let us, and we sold out of all of our inventory in that one day. We opened, we
Wow.
had a line. It was all the way down the
So
road.
there's
We
no
sold
other
out.
game stores then I'm
No,
imagining this.
not it's an hour away is the next game store, which
Wow.
is even
Yes,
reminder.
you have the market.
Yeah. But it's always difficult to talk with people about, which, getting to the reason that I wanted to do the podcast at some point maybe, um is a lot of people, especially for a tourist town, they'll have like boutiques and stuff, and so they'll have items for the season. They'll fill their inventory, and then the whole idea is everybody comes in from Chicago or Minneapolis, which are the big major cities that vacation in Minocqua, because it's cheap. It's a camping place. You can hang out on the island and do all of these things, Friday night fish fry, whatever. And the idea is to sell out of all of that inventory and then either have your hours go to a bare minimum or close in the winter. But for us, our inventory has to turn over like every month and a half, because we
Yeah,
participate in,
sets.
yeah, multiple different manufacturers, and then they have new sets per quarter. And then especially Wizards of the Coast doesn't just do one format. They have multiple formats, and now they're doing like cross stuff, kind of like for 14, where they do things with universes beyond. So Lord of the Rings, Transformers, Warhammer, all of this stuff. And so we have to keep turning over everything, and then we can't just close in the winter. And on top of that, you have to have a lot of capital to get the items into your store first, and then hope that you sell out of these items in order to put money back into the store and get the inventory that people are going to need
So
next
you're kind of
to.
concerned about a cash flow situation
Exactly.
when going into the winter. Yeah.
And so it's kind of one of those things where I always like to discuss, especially with people, because we're also competing with places like Amazon, right? So for a lot of other people that are on the island, you come in, you see something cute, it's at a local store, and you're like, oh my gosh, I want that, it's here, let me get it. But for us, there aren't minimum selling prices for a lot of games, especially card games. And so for people will get upset with us for charging retail in our store because they can get it online for like $50. So I would love to just like actually talk about it at length. I've probably talked about it too much already.
No, you haven't. I'm actually very interested in this. So people come into your store and they price check online and they're
Oh
complaining
my
that they can
gosh.
get it. So what do you That's the worst thing ever, because you're like, yeah, this is the price. If you like, you can't really price match. Well, it probably depends on the product, but
Yeah. But it's one of the things that's irked me the most. Is like for people like that, it's just like whatever. They might grab something, they might not. I don't really, we want to make sure that we have like good reviews, whatever. So we're always nice. We answer people's questions. We don't really say anything. The one time that it really irritated me, and I haven't done a video on it yet, but I want to, is this woman came in with her child and was like, I really like this. I really like this. And the child saying, I want to grab this. And she goes, put it on your Amazon wish list, sweetie. And I'm like, it's right there. What? I mean, I get for like
yeah,
holidays, birthdays, and stuff, but like, it's right there. You can have it today. You can,
yeah,
but don't let people hear you.
yeah,
But
yeah. That's a bit awkward. Oh, sorry, the dog has seen the rabbit again. One second.
it's okay.
Funny story about the rabbit. Okay, so my wife, there's a bunny that lives under the neighbor's shed. And in my wife's wisdom, she decided, what if I put carrots outside and like the girls love the rabbit? Well, the dog does not like the rabbit, okay? He actually quite hates the rabbit. Oh no, he's thinking about coming to tell me about it. But anyway, he hates the rabbit. The rabbit is like evil to him. but this rabbit has been attracted into our yard and now will not leave. Like the rabbit just chills on the front lawn and it's like 6 feet away from the window. And the dog is like, I'm going to explode. And the rabbit does not flinch at the barking from the window, but yet he just keeps going. It cannot be stopped.
If you hear anything from my end, I have another hound now. And this one's a purebred black and tan, but he, like, for some reason thinks he's always hungry. And there's one little slice of pizza on the stove right now. And he's just like staring at it and complaining. And you keep seeing him walk back and forth. And then he goes back over to the oven and he just like stares at it and he's like, ugh. But he just ate.
It's like all of us.
It's so crazy. I swear his metabolism is nuts because he actually probably eats more than he should. And he never gains any weight. It's insane.
Wild. So in the winter, are you still fairly busy then at the shop?
We have a good community of regulars. So it's more of in the summer, we have more diversity in sales and more of a volume in sales. And in the winter, because we have obviously play space for people to come hang out, and now we're part of the Wizards Play Network and Pokemon Play Network. So whenever people visit our store and they actually participate in an event that's going on, they get points towards like nationals for championships and things like that. So we have more people that will pick up the newest item from a set, like a couple of packs here and there in the winter, and play more. And in the summer, it's mostly people who just come in, grab like a board game or something and head out. So we still do well, but it's definitely different demographic for sure.
Yeah, that would make sense. I like how you can see, for those that are watching the video, you can see that my door moves every now and then because the dog is thinking about coming to tell me about the rabbit, but then he's like, nah, I'm just gonna go check on the rabbit again. It's yeah, poor guy. Yeah, that's really interesting. I feel like managing a business like that with some seasonality is a big challenge, and it's something that you have to really consider, and you can't just jump in and know what to do. You kind of have to make a few mistakes, maybe order too much of a product, maybe order too little, and just sort of play it by ear and iterate as you go. Would you say that's pretty fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of have to see, especially what your regular community is going to want and try to stock more of that or pay more attention to that so that you can answer questions. It's actually funny because we wanted to do one day what's called a chaos draft. And it's where you take a bunch of packs from different sets and you draft them. You pick one card out of the pack and then you pass it around, kind of like drafting for a sport. And you put a deck together and you play in a tournament. And we didn't have all of the packs that we wanted from different sets because it was before we had opened. And so we had talked to a guy that owned a game store that was, I mean, you can't really say anything's near us. It's all within an hour to an hour and a half. So we drove an hour and a half to this other store. And he's like, yeah, take whatever you need. Go behind the counter and just grab whatever. So I'm grabbing packs and he's like, where's your overstock? I'm like, what? And he goes, you're overstock. Don't you guys have overstock? And I'm like, no, we sell everything that we order. Like, and not even to say like, oh, we do super well, but we, our products are like, we order them to sell. Like, we're not looking to sit on anything to sell at, like for a huge half off sale later on. So, this guy purposefully orders extra cases of sealed product and we don't because we want to make a living. So
yeah. I feel like if you sat on too much inventory as a small business, you'd be hurting pretty bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we've come to find out anyway.
So you mentioned that you're redoing your house right now. I noticed that you're in a different room, I think. Yeah. Is your gaming room currently under construction?
So originally it was the bedroom.
Ah.
So once we moved here into this house, I was streaming from the bedroom, which is over there. And then we moved everything out here to make space in the bedroom when we had Oscar so that we could have his little crib in there with us to make sure that we were good with him. And then I had a separate setup at the shop as well. So I streamed from there for a little bit too. But when I started playing Guild Wars 2, we were in a different apartment. And
Mhm.
so it was just like a whole big one. It was technically 2 levels, but downstairs was just like the kitchen and dining room. And so I was upstairs in just this big room that had like our TV, our sofa, and our bed. I don't have a full streaming room yet.
Mm.
I'm hoping maybe the basement. We'd like to refinish the basement and have it. I keep calling it a rumpus room, but have like all of
Yeah.
Oscar's extra toys, like one of our TVs down there, like game systems and our PCs, and actually do like nice soundproofing and have stuff behind me. This will hopefully be fixed soon. I don't know if you guys can see the
Oh.
lovely patch taken out of the wall. That's from dogs being hungry. Yeah.
Oh.
They love scratching things off of the wall. It's really great. So I have to get that patched and painted because I don't know how to patch. So that's our next endeavor. And I think it's in November. We're getting the kitchen painted and then getting that patched and painted.
It's really cool. So you live in a pretty rural area then? Do you like kind of live out in the boonies or?
Yeah, so we actually live 25 minutes from town. It's kind of crazy.
Okay.
So like
Wow.
I always joke when I'm here and I actually do get to stream because I can't go above 3K Mbps.
Yeah. Yeah. Is this an IRL homesteading situation then? Do you have like animals or anything? Do you have a lot of land or is it just?
Oh yeah, we have 12 acres and it's all
Wow.
pines. So we have like pine trees and then we have trails through the pines. So we have to maintain those. But this house used to be Evan's grandparents. And
Oh,
so
wow.
it was not taken care of towards um the ends of their lives, I guess is the best way to say it. They weren't able to take care of it because they had dementia.
Yeah, of course.
And
Yeah.
so we have been working with Evan's parents and coming in and redoing everything. So like the floors are new, all the cupboards are new. There's like marble countertops for kitchen stuff that's new, and backsplash for the oven that's marble. That's also new. We just had our roof redone, and next is the doors and windows. Everything had to be repainted too. Um, but doors and windows are next, I think, hopefully before the winter. And then after that, we're redoing the siding on the house. It's a
That's
lot.
a lot of work.
Yeah.
I just in my head I'm thinking, okay, got to run the shop, got to redo the house, got to take
Mhm.
care of the kiddo, got to take care of the dogs, right? Like that's it's like a similar situation I guess where I find myself in life now, but I think it's one of those things, and this is the reason why I'm asking all these questions, why we're talking about this, is there's really one point I wanted to get to. And I feel like people that play video games and find community, they often play video games to find a community, to find
Mhm.
some way to talk to other people. And what I've noticed recently, at least for myself, is once I started having a family and two girls, I realized I never leave. Like I have no social life, and my social life is purely through video games and finding community on Discord and connecting with other parents. And I think it's kind of cool because, at least for me, I have found it very isolating to be a parent. I found it
Yeah.
very difficult. And there's kind of this like, crap, maybe nobody can relate because everyone lives in this perfect social media world. But it's cool hearing about how you're on the street, you're doing all these things, you're trying to juggle them, and maybe sometimes it doesn't work out the way you want it to exactly, but that's exactly my experience. And so I just think it's so cool that though you've got all these things going on, you still are looking for ways to incorporate your hobbies and follow your passions anyway. But I feel like parents just don't often talk about the struggles of being a parent. They just take it, they endure it.
Yeah. For sure. Especially with being a mom, which I hope that doesn't
No, no,
I
I
didn't
don't
say
feel
that
offended at all.
incorrectly.
Yeah, no.
Um uh, and I don't want it to seem like being a parent isn't fulfilling. But it's hard. It's I feel like it's harder than anyone can really tell you.
Mhm.
And until you experience it, because then it's like, like you said about, the social life, or in my case, it's I worry all the time. I am a nervous wreck. I have all of these things that I think I can get done, that I want to get done, and then I don't. And I feel bad for if I ever tell people that I'm going to do something and then I can't follow through, which a lot of times has been stream. And I'm like, guys, I'm back. And then 2 or 3 days later, something happens, and I'm like, it's really busy at the shop, which is good, but I'm not here, which is bad because I just told you guys I was going to be back. Um, or one of the bigger things too, especially for me, which I don't know if you would feel comfortable talking about it or anything like that, but for me, it's like my body. I look totally different than when I started streaming Guild Wars 2. And I like to tell people, my body's stronger after having a child. And like, it's incredible, which it is. But at the same time, it's been very hard for me to get back on track. And I don't mean that, like, I don't, I'm not active and that I don't eat well, because I do. But it's like, because I eat well and because I'm active, I don't know if I'll ever have the body type that I had before. And it gets to me a little bit.
Yeah, no, I
So
I
that's
can
the other big thing.
completely. I mean, obviously, I can't empathize as from that perspective of being a woman, but I put it this way. I'll just tell you because I have no shame. I started when so I lived in Micronesia for 2 years on these islands. I was a missionary there, and I I came home very malnourished. I'm 6'2". I was 165 pounds.
Oh my
I was
gosh.
like skinny, right?
Yeah.
Then after I started eating more, I floated around 185 for a long time. Then I got married, and and then I ate a lot of food, and I've just totally ballooned, full dad bod, and it's like always this mission to try to get more healthy, but it's so hard. It's very mentally difficult, and I keep thinking I can get back to my 20-minute 5K. I can do it, but I'm like, holy crap. The pandemic was very unkind to me. It was bad. I went all the way to like 240, and I've had a really hard time losing weight since then. I was doing well last year. I was on this like massive journey for like 8 months, and then I messed up my shoulder and kind of lost momentum. So it is so hard after you have kids because you can't just be like, oh, I'm just going to go to the gym now. You have to
Right.
think about it. And it's people don't often think about like the mental weight of having to go, I actually cannot make these decisions unless I have approval from a whole bunch of different stakeholders in this operation.
Yep.
Like you have to know where your kids are going to be, you have to know where your spouse is going to be, and you have to make all these things align. And it makes some simple task like going to the gym or like turning on the stream or whatever just a million times harder because there's a million
Mhm.
things to think about.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things for me too was because I wasn't expecting it, and I had an urgent C-section. And
Hmm.
so I had to recuperate from that. So I had time that I had to heal and that I wasn't expecting. And then I had a year later a different surgery that was life threatening. And so I had to recuperate from that. And I'm just like, I've never been so like, I'm happy, obviously, but also worn out like
Hmm.
in my whole life.
Yeah.
It just feels like I'm just like, and there's always something, and whenever there is something, it's never one thing. It's always like a group of things that always happen at once that we have to handle. So
Yeah.
thank
Very
goodness I have
stressful.
an incredible husband.
Yeah, it's hard. Well, and I have my wife does way more than me. Like I just think my wife is very, I think parents have different personalities and how they handle kids and stuff. I'm just very like matter of fact with my kids. I'm like, oh, we're gonna do this. But my wife is very much the nurturer, the carer. Maybe that's somewhat stereotypical, but she's very good at that. And I feel like I'm not quite as good at that, but I strive to be. So my wife is just so I'm very blessed to have the wife that I have. She handles our girls very well, and I'm going to be severely outnumbered for my entire life. So that's it's also a problem, but they'll they'll figure it out. Yeah. So I have a male dog. At least there's some, there's some balance. Yeah, it's very challenging. It's very, very challenging to try to balance everything and make everything work.
Mhm.
I feel like, yeah, you mentioned that sort of like the body image thing. I even feel that. So I can't imagine what it's like. I feel like stereotypically maybe women tend to take that even more harder. But I even feel it like on stream. I'm like, crap. When I started streaming, like I've watched videos of me and I'm like, I weighed less then.
Yep.
Like it like, it kind of gets to you. It's very hard. Maybe I could shift this to, it's just very hard being public about things. I
Mhm.
think I mentioned it just before we hopped on the podcast, but one of the beauties about live streaming is that it's very real. It's very real because I can say something stupid or offensive or whatever, and it's there. And there's this level of permanence with it being on the internet as well. And your mistakes and your flaws are all over. Like people can see them. And it's difficult to reconcile that sometimes. It's difficult because the internet will attack you for your imperfections. And when you are very aware of your own imperfections.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I think for me, a lot of it was, will people criticize me, or will people bring it up? I guess it's not necessarily that it has happened yet, or at least not to my knowledge. But one of the times that I didn't stream, I was getting all ready to stream and I went to go live and I was like, I look so different. Like, I don't know if I can do this. And then I wasn't in a good mindset. And I don't know if you've ever felt this way, but I've had, um, if I'm not having a good day or something happens and it's like, oh, okay, now I'm not in the greatest mood. Like, I'm not necessarily in a bad mood the whole day, but I'm put out from doing anything social, which would
Mm-hmm.
include content. Because it's like, well, I was really excited, like I was gonna do this for stream, and then we got like bad news. And I'm like, well, now I don't want to stream because I would want to be, you know, in a good mindset and happy for people, because I'm trying to brighten other people's day, give them something to do, or at least something to listen to, and I can't be sad, like I can't be
Yeah.
upset. I don't know if you feel that way as well.
No, I completely understand what you're saying. I find it very difficult. And the thing is, I have streamed like this before. I have, when I was really pissed off about something, I've streamed and it affects the way that I talk to people. And then I end up doing things that I regret sometimes. So now I get really scared to stream when things like, this is going to be a silly example, but when I was studying there's this exam called the GRE. I was
Mhm.
studying for the GRE and I was stressed all the time. From the moment that I woke up to the moment I went to bed, I practiced math 3 hours a day. I was working 2 jobs. I was trying to take care of the family, provide, do all of those things. And I would want to stream because it was like my safe haven. It was a place that I thought I could just escape and relax. But I was so stressed about the math. I was so frustrated. Because I was not very good at it. And I was getting more and more and more frustrated. And when I would stream, all I would want to do was just talk about how I hate math, like vent. And I just found it difficult after a while. And so there have been a few times that I've taken pretty long breaks from streaming at all, just by virtue of not wanting to be in a negative mindset or to affect other people negatively.
Mhm. Yeah, and I kind of, and then the other thing too was I would start to wonder, because there were multiple reasons why I had started playing Guild Wars 2 instead of 14. And one of them was, there was a certain portion of the community when I used to stream that was very much like upset if, they knew that I was like engaged or anything like that. And I got nervous
They
that
knew you were engaged?
at the time when I was still playing 14, people like my view count would drop significantly if Evan was ever like walking by on stream or talking to me, or you can be up here but you're not going to be pushing. But and so I'm just trying to give you this way. Sorry, he's like
All good.
pushing my chair. Um, but it was something that even Evan had picked up on before, and it wasn't everybody, definitely not. But I've always wondered, like when I've been trying to stream like 14 now, if anybody would be upset, that I'm married or that I have my son or that I've definitely like 40 pounds heavier than I was when I last streamed, and if anybody will even watch because of that, which I shouldn't think about and it shouldn't affect anything, but I do and it does.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if this helps, and this is just my unsolicited opinion, but I feel like the people that would only watch you if you're a single woman, I don't know if you really want them to watch.
Right.
Right? So that's how I would probably put that in my head if I were in your shoes. But I I think that is a fascinating thing about people, isn't it? It's a very fascinating thing about the human psyche that would change viewership numbers that dramatically, that to the point where you'd notice it, right? I think that's
It was
very
quite a few.
interesting.
Or like there was a time where I didn't even really notice it because I, actually enjoy playing the game and wouldn't really care about stuff like that. And and Evan would be like, "Did you see that?" It's like, "What?" And he's like, "You lost like 40 people because I walked by." And I was like, "Maybe there was an ad." I don't know. But
Hmm.
yeah, just kind of one of the differences as well was it always kind of felt like, I shouldn't say community wise because it definitely wasn't the whole community. And I have a lot of people that, wouldn't care what I was doing and just want to hang out. But I felt like for Guild Wars 2, with the chat that I had, it was like everybody was excited about every single step. Like everybody loved having Evan on stream. Everybody loved having Oscar on stream. Like they just were excited to be involved and see that part of my life where I guess it kind of felt like for 14 it was different, especially if you weren't doing like the main story quests, you know. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've actually started playing yet or if you're planning on it.
Genthier Wilds.
No, for Final
Or
Fantasy
Final
14.
Fantasy. Oh,
Yeah. Or
no,
if
I've
you were
thought
playing
about
on
it
it.
though.
Okay.
The struggle with MMOs for me is that there's a lot of opportunity costs, like leaving a game and going to play another game, which is why it's interesting to me that you're able to sort of jump around and play. I
Yeah.
am too hyper competitive. I think I like having like the completion on my account, and having to restart just gives me anxiety. I also think, do I really have the time to play like multiple MMOs? There's like a big switch cost to this. And I've thought a lot about trying Final Fantasy simply because I feel like it would be a lot easier to make comparisons. And also because I've heard that the end game is very, very good.
Yeah, I think it's it's weird because for like regular RPGs, the ones that I've actually gotten to play and am invested in, I am more completionist. But for MMOs, I really like the what are you doing, Finn? The experience of being new, which probably seems really weird, especially for a lot of people that are really hype about endgame. But obviously, there are people even in chat that will be like, "Yeah, Zan has like 35 characters, and they're all like level 10." Because I just love the beginning of things. I love the story. I love creating a character. I love figuring things out and actually testing combat with like, every single weapon or everything single spec. But I also started my game experience with World of Warcraft and then moved from WoW to 14 and then from 14 to Guild Wars 2. And when I say moved, it was more of I'd hit a rough patch in which the game didn't bring me as much pleasure anymore. And so I tried something else. And there are certain things that I like about each game that I think the others don't really have or deliver as well. And I think that's why I'm easily able to just be like, oh, there's a new expansion for this. Well, let me get back into that for a little bit and hang out with that community because it's like, all right, especially for World of Warcraft, going back to the original saga, um the creationism of the game is what these next three expansions are about, and for me that's huge because it's something I always talked about and is the reason why I started streaming in general. Or for 14 being like, okay, well, I'm really excited about this class, so I can pick up where I left off at the end of the last expansion and play it. And then for Guild Wars 2, it would be more about the new weapon availability and actually getting into that. And so I feel like even though I probably shouldn't be as much of a jack of all trades and master of none, I think that it keeps it so that I don't get bored or burnt out, I guess would be the best way to put it.
That would make sense.
Okay.
I think I just have to get over the gap in my mind. Have you ever played old school RuneScape?
I've not, and I have so many
Oh
people.
my
I
gosh,
have
you must.
so I didn't it was so funny because I went to start playing it and I like downloaded this whole thing, the whole like system that has like the new version on it and everything, and then I'd opened old school RuneScape and a browser opened up and I wish I'd been recording because I was like, is part of this browser based? And my husband just like laughed at me because I never played Neverwinter, I never played old school RuneScape, I never played EverQuest. I started with World of Warcraft. And
Wow.
so I would really love one of the things that I did an intro video for, I haven't done yet, but I would really love to just play every single MMO and just say like if it was good or bad and based on certain categories. It's on the agenda. I don't know if it will ever happen, but no, I have not played it yet. Someday, hopefully.
It is fun. So the reason I bring it up is because it's actually a game that you could very easily play while at the shop,
Yeah.
because you can just like leave sometimes, right?
But don't you like if someone kills you, don't they take all your stuff?
Yeah, but that's only if you're in the wilderness, which you
That's
probably
where I
wouldn't
want
be
to
going
be.
there. You want to be in the
Yeah,
wilderness. Okay.
I want to take other people's stuff. It's like
Full loot.
well, okay, so just to put it into perspective, what kind of video game player I am. And so this is why when you were talking about the whole when we had started discussing what had happened with you in the previous conversation, like the whole ableist thing. The type of player that I am is someone wanted me to play, oh my gosh, what is that game? Animal Crossing. Someone bought me a version of Animal Crossing. And I'm like, cool, this is awesome. Thank you so much for purchasing a game for me. Like, you didn't have to do that. And I'm playing it and I'm like, this is cute, whatever, it's cozy. So, like, when do I get to go to other people's farms? And they're like, oh, well, you can like trade stuff or do whatever. And I'm like, no, I want to take over their farm. Like, when do I get to do that? And they're like, well, you don't. And I was so confused and put off by that whole thing. Like, that is the type of
Wait, you
player
mean
I
you
am. I
can't
would have
dominate other
eventually.
people's farms?
Exactly. The only people that gets anything out of this is this raccoon. Like, I don't understand. So that is the type of person I am, I guess.
Yeah, I'm naturally pretty competitive. Like, when I go play pickup basketball or something, I have to like be very conscious about what I'm saying, because I'm a bit of a trash talker in things like that. I somehow avoid doing it too much on stream, except when I play PvP. Like, I kind of allow Dark Sneb to unleash sometimes and I just go Inferno on people, but I don't know if I like that anymore. It's I've been doing this like PvP arc. I played like 100 matches of PvP in the last month and a half or whatever. And I don't know if I actually enjoy being angry all the time. I feel like now that I've, settled down, I have my kids and my family and whatever, I'm just like, I don't need more stress. I'm kind of just happy to do chill vibes, hanging out with the bears in Janthier Wilds,
I would get that way for PvP too. Specifically playing WoW. And it was funny because PvP in Guild Wars 2 reminds me a lot of Battlegrounds in WoW, and I find myself like yelling at people that aren't in voice with me. I'm just like yelling at my screen, picking up my mouse and like dropping it down really hard. Not anything actually bad or like slurs or anything, but being like, why did you LOS me? Or like
yeah. Yeah.
I've broken many, many mice actually that way.
Really? Oh wow. I
I too.
haven't yet.
Yeah.
I almost broke a mouse a couple weeks ago when I Dragon Hunter pulled me into all their traps though. I was
Oh
pretty
no.
mad.
Yeah.
I did get unreasonably angry by that. And yeah, took a
Yep.
bit of a break after that.
Well, that's like the difference too, like talking about community wise is being kind of brought up in games by the WoW community. I've always just but of course little things I'll get like ragey about, like anybody else does over something dumb and be like, what the heck, but a lot of other things that people complain about or want changed in a game, or I hate to bring it up, but think is too hard. I'm over here just like, so.
Yeah, what are your thoughts about difficulty? I'm kind of curious because I think I'll just go ahead and say it. I think a lot of people would go, the mom who owns a business, who does all these other things, surely she can't be interested in difficult content. Surely she doesn't want that or whatever. Like, what are your thoughts on difficulty?
That's actually what I would prefer. I back in the day used to raid lead for WoW for both heroic before there was a mythic option and mythic later, and would be in like top 10 realm, not world or anything, but guilds to clear that content. And when I played 14, um, I really liked that even though the combat was instanced, you had different instanced difficulty levels. Um, and that it was more of a dance. Like if one person messed up, like the whole group messes up. It's not like a res thing. It's not like you have to worry about like your comp for resing. It's literally like if one person messes up, like you pretty much have to wipe, especially depending on at what part in the fight you mess up. Um and so when I had played Guild Wars 2, specifically for raiding, I was confused by trying to look for a group, especially in game. And I know that this has been a topic of conversation. And I was also confused about the difficulty argument because for me, if I could and I had the time, I would rather raid. Like I love raiding and I love doing difficult content. And when I was kind of put off by raiding in Guild Wars 2, because the first time I did it, I wasn't in I keeps calling it specs, but a spec that people I wasn't in an elite specialization and I didn't have like uh the focus that a lot of people would have or the proper gear for like things that I wanted to do, but I didn't die and I pulled more than the minimum amount of DPS. And I kept trying to reiterate to people that especially with the games that I came from, you focused more on doing the mechanics correctly instead of just bursting DPS, getting rezzed, standing on someone, bursting DPS, or whatever. And I know that that's not how it is for everything, but I was really upset because the first night I raided, people were upset because of the comp we had on stream, not in my group. Um, and I don't think I've ever actually seen these people again. But they were upset at what I was playing. They were upset that it took us 3 pulls to down something because we wanted to actually do it blind and we didn't want to just have a leader. Um, and I almost didn't raid again. And then the second time I did, we were doing. Is it which wing is it that has like the slug at the beginning and you have to like step on
The
things?
Slothosaur, you mean,
Yeah,
right? That's
yeah,
wing 2, where there's all the
yeah.
poison in the room and you got to go eat the mushrooms. Is that the one you're talking
Okay.
about?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I had never raid led for Guild Wars 2 before. Um, and we had completed Wing 1 that night, even though people were being jerks. And I kept saying that if people were going to keep being jerks, I was going to turn off stream because I was so irritated. And then we joked around doing Wing 2 with all of the new specs. We were testing it out. You know how you could test like the elite specializations for,
Hmm.
um, I think it was for End of Dragons.
Okay.
And we were testing them all out and we went into Wing 2 with them. And we had almost downed Slothosaur in one pull without knowing anything about these new elite specializations or the abilities or anything. And people were still saying stuff. And I was like, that is like for the argument that everybody always has, you know, whether they need to, they being ArenaNet, keep everything streamlined and not as difficult because of their player base versus, you know, the small portion of players that people always say, you know, it's a small portion of players that want this difficulty level changed or to have a different difficulty, which now is different because you have, you know, um, what is it, the single boss fights that have like the regular strikes and then the challenge mode strikes or
Yeah.
whatever. But I just thought it was so funny that people had everything to say about my group, but they're the same people that would complain about the difficulty of getting the turtle mount, or, you know, complaining about the difficulty of raids or the difficulty of finding groups and then getting kicked from groups. And I just, if I could do the top tier content all the time, I would. And I could not believe that that I felt so put off by doing raids because I wanted to focus more on the mechanics than just bomb damage and dying and then having
Yeah.
a res bot.
I think
That's
there's
probably
a
too much,
big,
but
no, I think there's a big communication problem a lot of the times in the community. We, I think I'm going to charitably interpret very experienced players now. So very experienced players, they want to impart their knowledge upon you, but they don't do it in the best way a lot of the time. They'll see that you're playing core elementalist or something. They're like, oh, you're going to do like no damage on core elementalist. And they know that you're not having a huge impact. And so they want to tell you like, you should do this, you should do that, whatever. But the problem is that maybe somebody just doesn't care about that. And this has been something I've really struggled with because I keep thinking, well, like if your goal is to kill the boss, then surely you should want to do the most efficient thing possible. And you know what? Sometimes people just don't care. They don't want to like min-max their thing. They're just going in and they're just vibing. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. If people want to play the game that way, it's totally fine. The only time that I would take exception to that is if somebody is complaining that the boss is too hard, but like actively choosing not to make any adjustments to fix their build. But it's quite interesting to me that there are so many people that will get very aggressive, especially with streamers who are trying the game.
yeah, it was just it was more along the lines of like I didn't have the ability at the time to have certain things like to unlock the elite specialization that people wanted us to, and then we didn't have a proper tank, and we knew that we could, you know, tank in a certain, it was to just for an example, we had a thief tank, and then it
Ah,
was more back and forth, and you actually had to dodge rather than just tanking in one spot and then switching to another spot and then going back to the other spot. You actually had to move. Um, and I always liked the idea of dealing with mechanics, figuring that out first, and then focusing on how much more damage you could do and min-maxing and going off of that. Um and it wasn't necessarily people trying to teach you to play. It was people being mad that we didn't have like the proper, you know, thing that they thought for the first time going in blind, or telling us to stack on one person. And I'm like, this is insane. But I also get that it's one of those things where if I were raiding in WoW 14, I would be on that treadmill and I would be doing the most current raid at the same time as everybody. And we would be learning together. And then people would put out guides and things like that. Whereas participating in the raids in Guild Wars 2, those are way older than when I started playing. And so obviously everybody already knows and has their cheese modes and things like that. And I do believe wants to help, or at least I hope that that's what they were trying to do. They were being super rude about it, but, and again, it wasn't ever, it was like a very small handful of people, but it's like, I think everybody wanted the end result for us to down the boss, but at the same time, everybody was going about it in a different way, what they might think was the right way, and that wasn't necessarily so. But I also find it funny that though, like I said, those same people would be upset about, you know, like a meta being too hard, or a strike being too tough. And why aren't we focusing on the the community as a whole in that difficulty and making sure that they can get their mount rather than having you have to work for things. So it's funny having the same people.
Yeah. Yeah, what I've had to do over time is just realize that when you're streaming and you're giving opinions, everyone feels like you're talking to them specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always exceptions to the rule, there's exceptions to what you say, and people will get very upset very quickly over random things. Oh yes, everyone is here.
They just got in
Awesome.
from playing outside and he wants strawberries, so
Oh, that's good. Strawberries are very delicious. But yeah,
and he
my
knows how to
point,
open the
yeah, my point was basically just like, I don't know. People will interpret things very negatively all the time, and they're gonna like put it in the worst possible light a lot of the time too. So, I feel like it's hard because people want to find something wrong with things in games. I don't know why that is, but they want to find something wrong. Mm-hmm.
I feel that way too. It's kind of funny because it's like I think it's kind of like been the big joke about the difference between like the three MMOs, right? So for 14, it's like um I'm gonna get so flamed for this, but it's okay. Um for 14, it's one of those things where you can have your opinions, but it has to be the same as the rest of the community and or the same as Yoshi P, because if you have a different belief, people will get mad at you. Not everybody, and it's definitely a vocal minority, but people will get mad at you if you want to, introduce changes to the game, or you suggest something that could be changed because their game is perfect because Yoshi P said so. For WoW, if you know the game is good when everybody's complaining about the stupidest little things. There is not a single person that plays WoW that's like, I think the game's in a really good spot. Nobody says that, and it's okay. Like everybody is like, yeah, game sucks. Indie game, it's horrible. We still have to have maintenance days. We can't like have a smooth world launch. Like, and it's known. Like that's what it is. Everybody hates WoW that plays WoW. But
We're forced to
Guild
play
Wars,
this silly game.
exactly. But for Guild Wars 2, it's kind of funny because it kind of felt like um some people thought that suggestions were cool, but others would be upset, especially with streamers. Um, and especially with new people coming to the game if they suggested something because like I said, it wasn't something that would fulfill like the full player base, or they would assume that you had connections that you don't actually. And so like anything that you actually say is going to change anything. Um, but people, I feel like for Guild Wars 2, depending on what your specific community is like, is a lot more accepting of either or. Like, whether or not you dislike something in the game or whether you think something's good. Or, you have the people that like put Teapot on a pedestal and they're like, he is like, you know, he represents the community. I don't know if you've heard that, but
Yeah, we
always
just
talk
kind of
to a lot of
experienced
people.
that conversation.
Like he represents the community, so it's funny seeing the different dynamics for everyone. Where it's like 14, you can't question it, and you get in trouble for questioning it. WoW is if you don't question them, you get in trouble because you're supposed to hate the game. You hate the game. And Guild Wars 2, I feel like it's been a lot more, left or right, and not so much as like very one-sided. But there are definitely people um, who put others on a pedestal and think that the game is the game because of one person. I feel like, but it's
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what was I going to say? I feel like I just lost every thought that was in my head all at once.
Sorry, I went on a
No,
tangent a little bit.
no, I when you said that everybody kind of focuses on what like one person says, or there's sort of this like God complex, certain streamers or developers or whatever. I think that's kind of, it's true.
Yeah.
It's very true. And it creates some like really interesting pockets of activity of people that are almost like religious zealots for one thing or another. Or people just
And I
believe things that aren't true in general.
Yeah. And I guess if I could say one thing about finding balance with everything, especially like with being a parent now, one thing that's definitely changed is before I probably wouldn't have said that. I probably wouldn't have actually talked about it for fear that people actually would get upset. Like if it ended, if this ended up as a YouTube video and I didn't want people to say anything about me in the comments or whatever. But now I just don't care as much.
Yeah,
Apparently, I care more about my physical than I care about the things I say. I don't know.
yeah. I used to care a lot about what people, and I still feel like I struggle with maybe caring too much about what people think. But over time, it's like I've got opinions, and I mean, you can hate them, but at least hate them for the right reasons.
Right.
And that's it. I'm not necessarily too shy about sharing what I think, and yeah, it's good though. Anyways, I need to go soon to prepare for the meta event in Xandrii Wilds, which you have not done yet, so I will not spoil it for
No.
you. But I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to chat with me. We got to learn a little bit more about you. We talked about being parents. We talked about culture stuff. Like, I think that's really cool. And I'm glad that you were able to participate. So thank you.
Thanks. This was awesome. Thank you so much for the invite.
And do you have anything you want to shout out or say, how people can find you, whatever? You can do that now.
Oh my gosh. If I can plug something, it would
Do
be
it.
that for the shop, we are hoping to open up an affiliate and partnership program. So if you like tabletop stuff or card game stuff, you can get at me on Twitter or my email, which should be on Twitch. Or if you're in the Discord, we're definitely looking for people, and you don't have to worry about whether you're partnered with Twitch and or YouTube or not. We're looking at everyone, and so we'd like to give everybody some swag and hope that they'll do some competitive stuff and give stuff to people for giveaways too. So that's the big thing.
Talonsong.net. There you go.
Yeah.
I said it.
Aw,
Right.
thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much again. I don't even know what episode this is. Like it's all, I think it's like 14 or something. I've just been going,
Nice.
but thank you for being here. I super appreciate it. And until next time, thanks.
Thank you.